everybody. Welcome to Stories by Shelley. I see you've chosen a wonderful Julia Donaldson, the smartest giant in town. And it's written by Julia Donaldson and illustrated by Axel Scheffler. We've got quite a number of these wonderful Julia Donaldson books. Do you enjoy all of them? What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments. The smartest giant in town. Shall we have a look what this one is all about? George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched up gown. I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town, he said sadly. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes. So he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds on them, and a pair of shiny, smart shoes. Now I'm the smartest giant in town, he said proudly. George left his old clothes behind at the shop. He was just about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my neck, said the giraffe. It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long warm scarf. Cheer up, said George, and he took off his stripy tie. It didn't match my socks anyway, he said, as he wound it round and around the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. Oh, thank you, said the giraffe. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself, my tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look at me, up and down. I'm the smartest giant in town. Look at him go. Hey, he is so smart. Off he goes. George came to a river. On the boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sail, said the goat. It blew away in a storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat. Oh, look there. See how the sail has blown away? Poor little goat. Oh, cheer up, said George, and he took off his new white shirt. It kept coming untucked anyway, he said, as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. Thank you, said the goat. And George strode on, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt is on a boat as a sail for a goat. But look at me, up and down. I'm the smartest giant in town. Then George came along to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice, and they were all squeaking, squeak, 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 squeak. What's the matter? Asked George. It's our house, squeaked the mother mouse. It burnt down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house. Oh no, look, there was a fire. A fire burnt down the little mouse house, and now all the little mice have nowhere to live. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. It was giving me blisters anyway, he said, as the mouse and her baby scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. Squeak! Thank you, they all said. George had to hop along the road, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself, My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. But look at me up and down. I'm the smartest giant in town. Before long, George came along to a campsite. Besides the tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his socks with the diamonds on the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said. As the fox snuggled into it, it made a very fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. And George hopped along, singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse. And one of my socks is a bed for a fox. But look at me up and down. I'm the smartest giant in town. George came to a big squelchy bog. Besides the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path for me to cross. I wonder what do you think George would have to help the little dog get across the bog? How, or what of his clothes items, what has he got left that he could possibly give the dog? Cheer up, said George, and he took off his smart new belt. It was squashing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. Oh, thank you, said the dog. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind, and he hopped on singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. My shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. My shoe is a house for a little white mouse, and one of my socks is a bed for a fox. My belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but... Oops. My trousers are falling down. I'm the coldest giant in town. Suddenly George felt sad and shivery and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop and buy some more clothes. He turned around and hopped all the way back to the shop. Look at that. Hey, his pants fell down. But when he got there, the shop was closed. Oh no, cried George, and he sunk down on the doorstep, and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals that he had met on his way home. But then, out the corner of his eye, he saw a bag with something familiar poking out the top. Oh! George took a closer look. My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the coziest giant in town, he cried, and he danced all the way back home along the road. Outside his front door stood all the animals that he had helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. Open it. George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head, and he opened the card. Inside it said, Your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe. Your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat. Your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox. Your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog. So here is a very fine crown to go with your sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. And that is the end of our story. What did you think about that? Would you have helped all those animals? I hope so. We'll see you again next time, everybody. Thanks for joining Stories by Shelley. Bye.